Hello. Hopefully you can hear us. So, hi, my name is Colin Wilson. Welcome to our webinar, which is all about the value of being planned and organised as a leader. I have this wonderful person next to me, Sue, who is an expert in time management, and she's going to go through and give you her tips on how it all works. So before we get started, I just want to do a bit of housekeeping. I just want to make sure if you put it in the chat box, can you see us? Can you hear us? I just want to make sure that everyone's can see our slides. So if you can say all good in the chat box, that would be great. Okay, awesome. So let's get started.
Got some yeses, got some goods.
Got some goods, so that's good. So there is a little bit of a height difference between Sue and I, so I might have to duck a few times.
And I might have to go on my toes.
But that's okay, it's all good. So for those who don't know me, my name is Colin Wilson. I'm the Managing Director of Key Business Advisors. We've been operating for 16 years, absolutely love what we do. We're all about helping businesses go from good to great, through our business strategy and growth programs that we do. We're all about people and culture. We're an outsourced HR business. We provide a lot of support and advice, and we do a lot of leadership training, sales training. And one of the things we're very passionate about is making sure that we're good at what we do. And I think we engaged you about, 5 or 6 years ago, Sue?
Yep.
Yeah,
at least, yeah.
Yeah. And everyone's got little green frogs on their computer screens in our office, because one of the things we talk about is eat the green frog and why you got to do that first. But I'm not going to tell you how that works. Sue will tell you how that works.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I'm very excited today because time management is very, very important. And this is the last project I've got to do today. And then after our webinar, I'm off to Europe. So I am very excited about going to this. So Sue, thank you so much for partnering with us and doing this webinar for our clientele. But
my pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Yep.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here and with all of you. And yeah, so time management, actually the interesting thing about being organized and managing your time and productivity, I am not naturally organized, and I wasn't somebody who naturally had good time management. And I learned that actually, instead of it being like a gene that you're born with, which some people, about 20% of people are born with this natural gene, where they have they've read this organization skill and productivity and time management that comes naturally to them. But actually it's a learned skill, just like anything else, right? Mm-hmm. So we can learn to be more organized and be more productive. And that's actually what I learned. And so what I love now is that I get to show you guys that it doesn't matter whether you good or bad with time, I'm going to teach you how to make the most of your time today so that you can actually get back time to do the things you love and enjoy, or I always say that you rather choose to do than have to do. So hopefully that's what you're going to be getting out of today's session.
We had over 70 registrations for this webinar, so it shows the importance.
Yes.
And we look after a lot of clients that are on this webinar. And one of the things, if anyone knows me, I talk about efficiency, becoming better at what you do. Get better systems and processes in place. And we talk about like softwares. Are you all on board using the softwares? Because the world has changed since COVID. It is about speed. It is about making sure how much can you fit in a day. But what tends to happen with a lot of us is fatigue now. We get tired, we get exhausted, and we think, well, how do we actually do it? And again, that comes back to, I always say, the better planned and organised you are, the better you're going to be for the rest of your team, especially as a leader. Absolutely. So I'm really big on that. So, okay, so we have got this wonderful partnership going on together, but I'm not going to do as much talking now. I'm going to hand that to Sue. But it is about, as a leader, the better planned and organised you are for your meetings, your emails and everything like that, getting back to people, the better the output for the business.
Absolutely. And as leaders, you're so right. And as leaders, you also need to realize that you need time for yourself as well. Like when you're leading, there's so much going on, right? Yep. And you need to make sure that you're doing everything for everybody else. But actually, it's really important for you to find time for yourself. And that's what this is about, because we want to find time for you to be able to enjoy your life and make the best of being with your family and all the things that you need to do instead of just working all the time.
The things that matter.
Yes, the things that matter. And that's what leads to the first thing I'd like to do today. And I'm going to do this with Colin, and I'd like you guys to do it on screen. But I've also got a great activity around doing a time audit, which if you put your details into our chat box, your email, I'll send it to you afterwards. But basically, we've all got 168 hours in a week. Okay, everybody's got the same amount of time. But it's what are we doing with that 168 hours? We got to decide and see exactly what it's made up of. And everybody I know, whether it's a client, a friend, a family member, everybody always says to me, there's not enough time. I don't have enough time. There's not enough time in my week. It's just chaotic. I'm busy, busy, busy all the time. And I always say, well, are you busy being busy or you're busy being productive? And so understanding a little bit more about what you're doing with your time is important. But also what I want to share doing this is to show you that there's actually a gift of time that's left over in that week. And we've got to see, are you wasting it or you're going to use it to do those things you choose to do and love to do? Okay, so this is how we do it. So Colin, you can do this with me.
Yep.
So first of all, we start by saying, okay, how many hours would you say on average you sleep at night? So what is our average sleep?
8 hours. 8 hours. 8 hours.
8 hours, right? Okay, so we take 8 hours and we times that by
30.
No, by 7. We're
By
doing
7.
week.
Oh, on a week. Sorry,
Yes,
week.
okay. So now we've got 28 hours, right? And then so tell me, how many hours would you say that you are working? Now, everybody's listening to this. Working is not just when you go into the office and come home. I'm talking about when you've got the laptop in front of the TV and you're still working.
Okay.
I'm talking about all the little extra stuff that you're doing. And particularly as leaders, we tend to be doing more, right? We put in those extra hours. So let's try and be a little bit realistic about how many hours do you think you're working on a daily basis?
On a daily basis. I'm normally right into it by 8 o'clock in the morning, and I finish at 6 o'clock at night, and that's religiously what I do.
Okay.
5 days a week.
Right. Excellent.
So
how much is that in hours?
So well, 8, that's 10. But you take out lunch, which is normally 10 minutes, so maybe just go 10 hours. Yeah.
So 10 hours, right? So that's 10.
That's 12, isn't it? 12? 8 to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
8 to 6.
6, yeah, 10 hours, yep.
Okay, so this is during the week, right? Okay, so we've got that times 5. And then what about when we've got the weekends work or anything else you're doing outside of those hours?
So that again will, for a lot of clients know, sometimes consume a lot of work, and that's how it works. And I'm not the only one. Like everyone does that. I try and cram as much as I possibly can into that time.
I love that.
Because that's efficient. But I do spend 2 hours on the weekend, every weekend. I'm going through our reports. Now I don't go and produce the reports. Reports come to me through our wonderful team. But I create like a to-do list for the week, and that is part of my setup for the week every week. So that's pretty much what I do. And then I normally try and do that if I can, first thing on a Saturday morning. Yeah. Because then I can have the weekend to myself.
Nice. Beautiful. I love that. And you know what? Planning for the week, on a Sunday or Saturday, even the Friday of the previous week, is a great idea, because we should definitely make sure that we know what's coming up in the week. There's nothing worse than opening your diary on a Monday and like, oh, I've got a meeting in 10 minutes, or not knowing exactly what's happening, right? So I really love that. So we're talking around.
Pretty sure you taught us that 5 years ago. So yeah,
see what I teach next. Okay, so this is now the next step, right? Is I call it life admin. Like, what do we do with our lives the rest of the time, which is chores, shopping, spending time procrastinating, which we all do, right? There's a lot of life admin things, if you've got kids and you roster them around, travel time, in between meetings, that kind of stuff. So tell me, what do you think on average per day you think you're spending on life admin? And this is different for everyone, obviously.
Yeah, so, well, I'm very well trained by my wife. So
I love that.
I go grocery shop. We're not an online grocery shop, but I go grocery shopping and stuff like that. So you're talking about all that, all the other stuff that you do.
Cleaning the house. We all have these things that take up part of our week. Obviously, they do, out of our 168 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
So if I were to say, well, how much would that take? I don't know. Part of my therapy is gardening or golf, right? So
hold on, gardening and golf is going to come into the gift of time.
Was that you said cleaning up the house. Cleaning up the house means gardening. But okay.
Well, it depends if you love gardening. Right.
So I'd probably put, I don't know, maybe 5 hours to that. Yeah.
Okay.
Unstacking the dishwasher.
In a week or a day.
In a day, wouldn't even be
an hour a day.
An hour a day. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take another 7 hours, right?
Yep.
Okay, so now we've got 50.
This is really therapy for me, isn't it? Yes.
52. So I hope you're all doing this with us, right? 52 plus 28 hours of sleep plus your 7 hours of general. Okay, 87 hours.
Yep.
Out of 168.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 80 hours left.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Now, it's obviously not an exact science here, but what I'm showing you is that you've got this huge gift of time. That when we say we have no time, what are we doing with those 80 hours? Yep. Or the 40 hours or whatever you've got left? What are you doing with that? Because a lot of it is what are time wasters? Things that we waste time on, right? You tell me in the chat box, where do you waste your time? What are you wasting time on where you've got these this gift of time in your week, but actually you're not making the most of it and using it for the things you love, like golf, to the things that you enjoy doing, you know, the things you choose to do, that I like to call it the me time, right? Time for yourself, your self-care, etc. So let's think about it, right? There's a lot of time wasters. Mostly it's scrolling, right?
Scrolling, yes.
Okay, so we get stuck involved in other people's lives and what they're up to instead of focusing on our own. So let's stop with the time wasters and look at your gift of time and start saying, hey, it's not that I don't have enough time. There's more than enough time. But what are you doing with the time that's over after you sleep, work, and do your general admin?
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. And I see some people have put their details in.
Scrolling on your phone, Facebook, big
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was at a
exactly.
conference on the weekend, and a guy, Sam, I can't think of his name, maybe Edwina, she's on the hook up and tell us, but he talked about the average person scrolls something like 200 miles a day with their phone. It was huge. I can't remember the stats, but it was very scary to think that people can do that or binge watch.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah, screen time. I call it screen time. So whether it's your phone or whether it's the TV, and look, hold on a minute. I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing that at all. What I'm saying is if you've got 80 hours, spend some time, you know, looking at your phone, spend some time watching your favorite Netflix show, but make sure that there's time in there for yourself to do the things that are important. And one of those is quality time with your family.
Just put the words out right out of my mouth. I think so I'd rather go to the movies with Lorraine and have a night out than watch, you know, 5 episodes of Netflix.
Exactly. And when people say they don't have time for their families or they're too busy, particularly as leaders, right? Because we know you work those extra hours, but that's not really true, because if you put down the phone or you didn't watch the Netflix and you actually made a date night or, you know, took your kids out, you know, rollerblading or something like that, then everything can change. So
I think the other thing too is with work too is you get fatigued, so you got to be in the zone too. To you know, like you can do something in half an hour, but if you're not in the zone or you're fatigued, it might take you an hour and a half to do that. You do it for an hour, then you see mistakes and you go back and redo it. Exactly that. That burns a lot of time.
Exactly. And I'll talk a bit more about that actually as we're going along, because we definitely want to have focused attention, right? And so that makes sense. So I've got a couple of little mantras that I want to share with you guys, because these are things that really resonated with me and what made the difference for me when I changed from, you know, being totally disorganized to organized. And the first one is this: the pursuit of perfection leads to procrastination. Now, the perfectionists in this room right now, you understand what I'm saying here. Because when you spend your whole life saying, when it's 100%, I'll be done. When it's perfect, I'll be finished. What happens is that perfection is an illusion. And so you're always trying to strive for something you're never going to get. So write this down, okay? Done is better than perfect. And definitely it's about progress and not perfection. So we want to move away from this idea that everything has to be 100%. Because when we think it's got to be perfect, we never finish. Or when we do finish, we rush it at the end, because now the deadlines come and you kept saying, I'll check it, I'll check it, I'll check it. And what happens when we do something in a rush?
Mistakes happen.
Yeah. So we don't want to do that, right? So let's move away from that. The other thing is that when we think about being organized, it's also not about perfection. You don't have to have the perfect system, the perfect place to put something. It's about having a home for things. Things need to live somewhere. If they don't live somewhere, what are they? They don't live anywhere.
They're scattered everywhere, yeah.
They're homeless. Okay.
There you
They're
go.
homeless, right? So things are all over the place, right? We can't find them when we need them. And I'm talking about an email, a piece of paper, an item, anything that we have that we need to find again and use needs to live somewhere.
Documents is a big one.
Yes,
Documents.
right. So and whether it's on your, you know, in your computer or whether it's a piece of paper, we need to know where they live, because otherwise we're wasting time looking for them, right? Makes sense, doesn't it? Now, simplicity is the key to being organized, right? Doesn't that make sense? Okay. Because complexity is the enemy of execution. Like if we make things too hard, then we can't execute it, we can't finish it. So I'm all about simplicity. So when you go away from this today, you're going to have some simple things you can immediately implement. And that's what I am here for. Okay. I want to make sure that you can make a change today. Now, every big job is actually only a lot of little jobs put together. If you think about anything that we do, it's in steps. We have to do one thing, then the next, then the next, then the next. So instead of seeing this huge, overwhelming job and thinking, oh, I just don't have time to do this because it's too big, too hard, right? What we do is we say, okay, let's just break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces. And when we do that, we're going to get the job done. So good reminder.
I think it's, you know, like also like rather than a big job, it's a project,
Yes.
right? And there's steps to the project.
Yeah.
So there's 10 steps to this project, and I just got to knock one of them over by time.
Exactly.
One of my saying is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Exactly.
So let's just get
yes,
through it.
That is the exact same thing, right? So you just one bite at a time, we're going to get to the result. But if we say, oh, it's going to take me like 10 hours, you're never going to do it.
That's right.
Okay? Because you don't have 10 hours lying around, right? So let's talk about what it's costing us by being disorganized. So what do you think are some of the costs of disorganization? So put it in the chat. What do you think are some of the things that it's costing you by being disorganized? Colin, you can give us one in the meantime.
I think you absolutely. So when I read that, first thing comes to my head is I go into the day being organised, and today's a really good example. And I'm going on holidays today, but the amount of emails I got today and phone calls and they're not to say goodbye. They're just, hey, I need your help, or can you know what? So that I find that sometimes what happens is you set these things out to do, but then you get interrupted. So, you know, for an example, you know, you could be a team member of mine, and then I ring you, you feel obliged to answer the call while you're in the middle of doing a project, right? And I'm very big on, well, no, you finish off the project. You can always call me back, because if it's urgent, I'll text you, say, can you call me urgently, right?
Exactly.
So I think this is where, and when you know, our clients own us in many ways, right? Because in a service-based business, you know, you must take their call or get back to them fairly promptly, fairly quickly. And that's part of your organisation skills as well. So if I'm working on something, I think, well, okay, I'll allocate this time to get to ring these clients back.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't happen like that.
No, it doesn't. But you know what? I'm going to beg to differ with you there a little bit. And this is something I want everybody to think about. You know, yes.
We've got one here, anxiety and stress.
Yes. Okay. That's the emotional cost. You got it. Absolutely right. Anxiety and stress. And we shouldn't get anxiety and stress about getting back to a client. Let me ask you this question. If you send an email to a client, right, and they don't answer you straight away, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. I just think they're busy, so I'll wait for 24 hours and then I'll yeah.
Yes, okay, they're busy. Like, you don't, even though everyone would love you to answer them immediately, they would like you to, but they don't expect you to, because people understand that you're busy. You could be in a meeting. We're in a webinar right now. We're not answering any of our communications because we can't. So people don't have that expectation. I think we put it on ourselves.
True.
And that's when it comes to being stressed, we stress ourselves about, I've got to get, you know, I've got to answer this email, I've got to get back to this client immediately, unless, of course, it's an absolute emergency. But then they're going to phone you again, or they're going to send you something to say, hey, I need to talk to you right now. And of course, you'll drop everything. But we've got to learn to think about things differently.
I think it's important too is about teamwork as well. So, you know, I had an incident where someone was, if I can say, you know, I couldn't speak for a few hours on Friday, but, you know, I then just forwarded that message off to a team member and say, can you please handle this for me? Yes. So I think, you know, and that goes back to having great teamwork in your business and people understanding of you know, what needs to happen. I think that's really important.
Exactly.
So that gets rid of that, you know, Mandy, that gets rid of some of that stress and anxiety, if I can say, because, you're going to talk about the green frog, but you've got to do these things to get yourself ahead. You've
got to do them.
Because you feel great afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm going to share the other costs of this organisation with you now. Financial. Okay, so the financial cost, it costs us money in many ways financially if we're disorganized. You know, think about this. Forgetting to bill a client on time. Has anybody ever done that? Of course we have. You know, to not actually pay a bill on time, and you end up paying an extra cost. Buying lunch every day at work, cost of disorganization, right? Not organized enough to make sure that you pack something every morning. So there's definitely a financial cost to being disorganized. The second one up there is where I've got the time factor, right? Because did you know that you can spend up to 6 weeks of your year looking for stuff? 6 weeks. Now, Colin, I know what you're about to do with your 6 weeks. What are you about to do? Go on. Holiday, right?
Holiday, but it's so true. I mean, look, you know, I think, you know, we're always trying to perfect this in our business. We had a meeting just before you coming in about how to get the reporting the way we want it, right? So I'd have to go and format it to I'm a printer, so I might get a report printed and then I write all over it. That's what I do. That's how I'm paper-based, right? Not too much because I don't like killing trees, but I think that's part of it. So just, you know, getting that person to format stuff. And so I'd have to go and reformat it, right? Now, I know that's only a minimum of time, but if you add that up, that could be a week over a year, you know, just as an example.
So we're wasting all of this time, right, on looking for stuff. It's a total waste. So we've got to make sure that we don't do that. And then the last one is, as Mandy had said, obviously the emotional costs. So being overwhelmed, feeling out of control, feeling stressed and anxious. Well, we don't want to feel that, right?
Yep.
So when we get more organized and we understand more and we have better systems around managing our time, then we feel organized. We don't feel overwhelmed. We feel like we're now back in control. And that's what this is about. Okay. And I just quickly want to share with you the actual cost to your business, because when it's financial cost, it's not just about you personally. Of course, as leaders, you all know that your business, wherever you can save money, you should. And I call it an opportunity cost calculator instead of, a loss, because at the end of the day, it's what we could be using that money for. So just quickly, if you had 20 people in your business and they spent just half an hour a day being disorganized, and you're paying them, say, a rate at $50 per hour, $143,000 your business could be doing something else with.
Yep.
And I've got this calculator on my website. So please, if you want to work it out for your own business and the number of employees you have, go do that. You'll be very surprised.
Well, I think it is too, and I think like if there's a lot of owners and managers on this webinar, but one of the things that frustrates the crap out of us is seeing people burn time because they can't find this or they can't find that, right. And it's like, hey, well, okay, so sometimes we hear, oh, I need another staff member. And I question that, well, do you need another staff member? Is everyone efficient in your business, right?
Exactly.
Is everyone operating at a really good operating rhythm? Now, I'm not expecting 100% out of my team all day long, but if I can get at least 80%, I'll be pretty happy. If you think about that, that's, you got to have a bit of downtime as well. And, you want to make sure that, you're having a chat with your colleagues, and this working from home is another real challenge as well, because I'm working from home, I can't find this, I can't find that, and that happened during COVID. We ring somebody up, can you email me this, can you send me that, and you'd burn an hour in a day just trying to find something. A lot of businesses, that happens. So this is why efficiency is really important.
Absolutely, and that's why you want to make sure that everybody is using their time more effectively, right? And it makes a lot of sense, absolutely. But let's talk about procrastinating, because I think this is a big area, and I know this is the one thing that Colin definitely wanted me to share with you today, because procrastination is an interesting thing. Another word for procrastination is resistance. And what is it? It means we're resisting doing something, okay? And then that's what makes us procrastinate, right? So you tell me, guys, what do you think are the reasons we procrastinate? Now, one, we've already spoken about perfectionism, right? Until it's perfect, we're not going to finish it, so we procrastinate. There's more reasons for us to procrastinate. So what do we think they are? Why do you think that we put things off? Can you think of one?
Lack of preparation. So I go back to, I spend 2 hours on a Saturday to make sure I get all my ducks in a row for the week ahead, so I don't procrastinate. Yeah, right. Absolutely. So and I write things down. So I write things down in a little book, and Belinda, who does all of our finance in our business, she sits beside me. And on a Monday, she'll want to go and read my book and go, I can do this for you, this for you, this for you, because that's just that's the operating rhythm that we've got. But
so you're right, we have to be prepared, right? There's no doubt about that. But there's some other things, right? One of them is sometimes it's too hard. So if something's difficult, we put it off, right? When I've got time, I'm going to, go and work out how to do that job. So we put it off the whole time because it's too hard. Sometimes it's because it's too boring. Like things are, some people have to report, say, for example, or do timesheets, which we know we have to do to get paid, but they are the most boring things, right? I'm sure you can all relate. So we put it off, right? And sometimes it's about time. It takes too long. Right. So if it's too hard, it's too boring, it's going to take too long, or we want to be perfect, this is why we procrastinate.
Can I give you a really good thing? So whenever I do, because I do a lot of professional sales training and leadership training, as you know, and one of the things that I always talk about is, in sales in particular, you got to make your phone calls. You got to do your things you hate first up in the morning, otherwise you will find something else to do and it will never get done.
Exactly that. And that's the thing, because it's the hardest thing and you don't enjoy it. So now, talking about that, I'll tell you why I love frogs and why we're talking about frogs today. Okay. So the saying is eat the frog. Now, some of you may have heard it, maybe not. But Mark Twain originally had the saying, he wrote the saying, and a very well-known professional guru on sales, Brian Tracy, took it to another level. And he wrote a book called Eat That Frog, and I highly recommend it, because basically it takes you like what the procrastination issue is and then what the technique is or how you can stop that. But really what the saying is this. If you ate a live frog first thing in the morning, nothing else you did that day would be as difficult, right? Now, I'm not telling you to go and eat real frogs, but what are we saying, Colin?
Well, eat the frog. Do it first. Get those hard things out of the way first.
Do the hard things first, because the hard things that we have, what happens is, you see my little froggy here? Hope you can see him on the screen.
Yeah.
They sit on your shoulder all day, these frogs, right? And there they are croaking all day and telling you, hey, you should be doing that. You know, you should be doing that. And you're not productive because you've got the whole time in the back of your mind to think about that hard thing, like making the sales calls, which you know are part of how you're going to run your business, right? And this is for you, by the way, it's for your desk.
Oh, thank you.
And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we do those hard things first. So you guys in the chat, or if you're at home watching this afterwards, I want you to write down a list of your frogs. What are the things that are holding you back? Now, interestingly enough, frogs can be little things or big things, right? The little thing is the phone call, putting off a phone call, a difficult conversation.
Yep.
We've done that, right? But the big things is finishing a project and, you know, you've got a whole lot of work to do. But either way, we want to do those things, remembering that bite-sized pieces is the way that we're going to get to do that, which takes me to my next favorite technique of procrastination, which is the 10-minute task. So remember, every big job, a lot of little jobs, 10 minutes at a time. And that way, using a little alarm, you can use that as well, and you get stuck in and do some focused attention. Because I've got news for you. Multitasking is a myth, right? Multitasking means that we're doing lots of things reasonably well. And what happens when we do lots of things reasonably well, we feel unaccomplished. So I hope that you guys can relate to that. So stop multitasking, get focused for 10 minutes, power focus for 10 minutes on something with an alarm. And when the alarm goes beep, beep, then you can, if you're into it and you're doing well, you can always, of course, extend that. But the fact is that you're actually focusing your attention, and you're going to notice a big difference in your productivity because you're not trying to have 100 things at once. It's like having, you know, all of your things open on your browsers open, you know, every single website open at once. It feels like everything's just overwhelming, right? And we don't want to do that. We want to focus our attention.
I've got a couple of comments here, and I just want to add to that. So Mandy's point, I think it's fear of failure, right? So, and again, you know, this 10-minute test is, you know, like get yourself in the zone, if I can say that. Like, and Jessica's just put one out there dealing with customer issues. So that little 10 minutes task before you ring the customer is find out your facts first. Do you know what I mean? So because there's nothing worse than ringing a customer that you're on the back foot, and then they're going to what's the word? You know, if they're unhappy, they might attack you, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it just might be getting a bit of clarification on something as well.
Yeah.
And you know, when we talk about the game of I've got to prospect or I've got to make phone calls, well, rather than just look at a database, where's your list of 10 people? Let's just knock off 10 at a time. And before you know it, you've done 20, 30 calls in a day.
Exactly.
And it's just how it's done. So it is that preparation is so important.
Definitely. And you're right, like when we're putting things off, fear of failure is one, obviously the biggest thing, because most of us as humans, you know, the biggest thing, scariest thing for us is that we're going to fail. And you know what? I always say this question to my coaching clients: what is the worst that could happen? Sure. I promise you it's not life-threatening. So you can do it, just do it, you know. And it's definitely dealing with customer issues, because we know you're going to have some difficult conversations. So yes, eat that frog first thing in the morning and you'll notice a big difference. So yeah, well done.
Very good, very good. Are you liking what Sue is going through, guys? So feel free to put that into the chat box, and that'd be great, because we're sitting behind. Here we go. I've just buggered you up by doing something. Go, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so that's just the multitask thing. Now this is something that I want to share with you, and it's really important for us to remember that when we think about all information that's coming into our environment, it feels like there's so much, it's so overwhelming, there's so many things coming in, but there's only two types of information or emails or paper, whatever's coming in. And that one is actionable and one is reference, which means actionable is something you need to do something with. So maybe you've got to write a quote, or you've got to do an invoice, or you've got to set up a meeting, right? You've got to work on a project. That is action. Reference is stuff you put away, so you don't have to do anything with it. And so we get overwhelmed, but actually it's only the action side we need to look at. Right? When something comes in, you say, well, is this action or is it reference? You only have to have one of two decisions to be made. I need to do something with that, or I can put it away.
And if you think about when an email sent to you, or your B seed, or CC, or BC seed, like, so I always look at it, if I'm CC, that's a reference.
Yes.
But if someone sends me an email, then I need to action. And that's where I think in a company, a lot of companies get it wrong because they email everyone, right?
Yes.
And the people sit there and procrastinate. What do I have to do with this?
Exactly.
And then someone may not want to go reply all just in case they screw something up. So they might get out of their chair or ring someone else, someone burning time.
Yeah. Well, I call it the CC sickness. People have it in companies, and you know what it is? It's because CYA. We're in Australia. We know the CYA stand for. Do you remember? Do you know?
No, I don't. No.
Cover your ass.
Oh, cover your ass. Sorry, yeah.
So what happens is everybody will send it to everybody and CC everybody in because they want to cover themselves. But think about the leaders. If everybody in their company is CCing them in, you know, this is why they're overwhelmed with emails, because everybody wants to include them. So you only CC somebody in if they actually need to know the information, and you also only CC if it's a reference, because if you want them to do something, they're not going to do something. You just said it, right? If it's a CC, it's not actionable, it's a reference. So it's just a good reminder. And so when we think about our time, one of the most important things I believe is we need to have deadlines to something, because whenever becomes never.
Yep.
You know, whenever I've got time, I'm going to do that. But we know that that never happens. And so my favorite saying, as everybody who knows me, right, is that if it gets scheduled, it gets done. And that's the difference. You know, if you put it in your diary, there's much more chance of you actually doing something.
Yep.
So remember to schedule things. Don't leave it for whenever.
I have a saying, ABC, always be closing an outcome. What's
Nice.
the outcome? Get the outcome done, get the outcome done, get the outcome done.
Love it.
So, and that's that scheduling, putting a timeline on it. So,
deadline.
Yeah.
Without a deadline, nothing works. I mean, I come from an advertising background, so everything works from deadline backwards, right? So once you know your deadline, then you work out what you need to do from today, right? And that's when you get it in your diary, you decide on your 10-minute task, you know, you make sure you plan what you need to do. And it's important to know how long each task takes as well. So, you know, when you're doing a list of things, you want to make sure that you know how long they're going to take and how long you need to schedule. So, to-do lists. Okay. Now, everybody knows that we have to write down, and I will say that you do need to write it down, what you want to do, because if you're keeping it in your head, it's a problem. David Allen from Getting Things Done saying is that, you know, your head is for having thoughts, not for holding on to them. Okay, so you've got to take stuff out of your head and put it down on paper, because otherwise your head's so full of everything. There's no time in there to be creative, to dream, you know, to just relax, because you're so busy trying to remember all the things you need to do. So with a to-do list, I'm going to quickly run through this with you, because you can go onto my website and I've got blogs on all of these things and you can actually read them. And of course, get in touch with me if you want to know more. But quickly, one master list, just one of everything you need to do, whether it's related to home or whether it's related to your work, right? We only need one list. We prioritize that list only after you've done your brain dump. So everything goes down on the list, and then you decide what needs to be done when. And I'll share the 4 do's with you now. Color code. So when it's color coded, what happens is you're able to see where you're spending most of your time, which I think is really important. And we also want to make sure in that color coding that there's one color for you, because if you're not making time for yourself, then there's a problem. You know, most people talk to me about this idea of work-life balance, right? People want to find work-life balance. Now, I don't call it work-life balance, because when we're trying to balance something, it's too hard. Like, we can't have 50% of this and 50% of that, right? It's just too hard. So I use the word harmony. So we want work-life harmony, right? And when we think about work-life harmony, it means that in your diary, there's going to be something for you, okay, your self-care, etc. And of course, what I said, schedule the tasks, okay, what gets scheduled gets done. So the 4 Ds is how to prioritize, because most people say, okay, well, now I've got this list, but I don't know how to make sure I don't know what to do with everything. So the first D is for do. That must be done today. Okay, that's the priority. It has to be done today. The second D is delegate, or I prefer the word leverage, right? We leverage our team, we leverage other people, because if they're better at something, why would we want to do it, right? We want to leverage people. So we delegate to whoever we can, just like you were saying earlier. You can't answer a call, make sure somebody else can answer the call, no problem. This one's important, delay, because what happens is we all do that. You know, the things on your list that you keep moving and moving, they leapfrog, okay, across to the next day and the next day. We all do that. Instead of delaying it and keeping moving it, just decide when you're going to do it and put it in your diary. Now you don't have to think about that until, say, Wednesday, when you've allocated time to do it. So delays. And delete means some things have been on there too long. They're no longer relevant. And of course, if it's been done, forget to delete. Everyone likes to cross things.
Oh, you're right, because in my little book, I like to put a line through. So I tick it that I've had the conversation, and I put a line through it, so it's been completed.
And it feels good, doesn't
It feels good. Well, it's up, you know what, it clears the brain
Yes.
because you can't, there's nothing worse. You go to bed and you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I haven't done this, I haven't done that, I haven't done this.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this is a methodology that we learned from Sue, and I've lived with that ever since.
Outstanding.
So my book goes everywhere with me because it's, so things happen. And I've just got a really good, a little case study of this is, I've got Emma, who's our marketing person. She's working on a project and the customer's like, I want this done before you go overseas, right? I want to see a first draft version. Anyway, so I said to her, look, we're running a little bit behind schedule. So I said, look, can we get this done by Wednesday? Even though I'm overseas, I'll email to him and I'll send him an apology. So I thought, and she goes, oh, I really need it done by, can you give me an extra day because I'll make it better. So rather than giving her the stress and the anxiety, I thought I'd just ring the client and see. Well, he's taken a week off, right?
Okay.
So he told me he was only going to take a couple of days off, but he's actually taken the week off. So someone else answered his call, so he's forwarded his call. He goes, no, he's back on on Friday. So I thought, well, great. So that was a good outcome, if I make sense. If that makes sense.
Definitely.
You've got that communication is really, really important when
Yes,
you're working together as a team.
Vital. Yep. Absolutely vital. There you go. You're right, using leverage with your team and your client, right? Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so we all know how to prioritize our list now, okay? And as I say, you can get more on that on my website. So let's talk about calendars. So the calendar is not just your timekeeper. When I talk about timekeeping, I mean you're putting in appointments, right? We all do that. We put appointments into our calendar, and that's why we know where we need to be, right? Why we're here today. So, but it's not about that. What I want you to get into this habit of is actually moving all of those actions in your task list into your actual calendar. So you're allocating a time for you to do it, and that is going to make sure that you get it done. Now, interestingly enough, on most calendars and most of our Gmail, or whether it's Outlook, whatever we use, you can actually have a task list on the side of your calendar, which is awesome. So you can just type the things you need to do. And the best part about that is, I don't know if you know this, but you can actually take those and drag them into your calendar. So you can take them and give them a time and allocate a time. So to write the task list, type them up, throw them into your calendar, and make sure they get done. Make sense?
If there's one thing we took away from your last part from Eat the Green Frog, is this: all of our calendars are color coded. Everyone can see each other's calendars. And so if there's someone rings in, like it can go, I don't have to get a message and call the customer back. Sarah goes, Colin's available this time, I'll just whack it into his calendar, right? So that efficiency is just, it's really good.
Yes, it makes so much difference. And especially when you're sharing calendars, making sure that people see block time. You need to block your time. If you want to actually do some work, you need to make sure that you're blocking time to do those projects like we spoke about, right? That focused attention. So block it out like you're not available, because what happens is, if you don't treat yourself with the importance you deserve in your calendar, you keep moving things, delay, right? We keep moving them because everything else is more important, but it's not true. You are the most important person in your diary. And when you start to realize that, you start to do the things that you've allocated, and then you start to keep up, because it's always better than to keep up than to catch up, right? So we want to make sure that we're keeping up with the things we do. The other thing is, you'll notice some things are recurring there. Always put recurring actions into your calendar, because you want to make sure that they've been blocked out, right? So we want to make sure. I think we've got a question.
We've got a question.
Yes.
Here we go. How do you slow everything down when you are feeling overwhelmed? Normally, this is when we're in a state and we're not thinking calmly. So, Mandy, this is a really good question. What's your advice on that?
Okay.
Yep.
So this is the thing. When we said before, when we're not using our time effectively and we're feeling completely overwhelmed, that's when we start to feel like that, right? There's too many things. I'm overwhelmed. I'm doing everything too fast. First of all, the quickest way to change your state, by the way, is through physiology. And I would always say, take a deep breath. Stop. Take a breath, and then observe your situation, and then move forward. Because what happens is, because you're feeling like there's too much going on, nothing's getting done. And I'm sure you can relate to that, Mandy, right? So what we want to do is we want to stop, take a deep breath. And when you start using some of these systems tools I'm talking about today, you're going to notice you won't feel that, okay? You won't be feeling as overwhelmed, because you're going to see your diary and you're going to see, okay, this is fine. I know when I need to do those steps for that project. I don't have to think about it now, because it's actually only allocated on Wednesday. Right.
And I would love to have a conversation with you, or both of us, Mandy. It won't be me, but because there's a few things that lie behind your question. Number one is, do you have people you can delegate to you, right? Do you have enough team members that are trained up to try and take some of that work from you? Do you have a plan in the business of, this is where we need to be? Because sometimes what happens is, in my point, I do a lot of strategic planning, and everyone's got everything in their head and it's all crazy. But once we can get it onto paper and then put an action plan in with milestones, all of a sudden they see the light and start working to that. So there's many things that could be creating that. So, we're working with a client that had 3 people in their call center. It's 1 person. Now, that's not sustainable, right? But it's, but the mental health for that particular person is the action plan of the business recruiting and putting a, reassuring they're going to fix the problem.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Colin. Absolutely. Such great advice there. And yes, so we can take back control, and we don't have to feel overwhelmed if we've got things in place, right? We take away that feeling. So what I thought was I wanted to share just a couple of things for you around email so that you could take away just 3 things that you could do that can help you with your email. And one of them is, of course, when you first look at your computer, I always say this digital clutter may be invisible, but it's still costing you. Like, just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean that there's chaos in your computer, right? We all know this. So we also want to get organized when it comes to our computers. But with your emails, if you're overwhelmed with emails and you've got too many in your inbox, one of the best things I can recommend is to make a clean slate folder. This is like the kind of the draw the line in the sand thing. Because when you're starting a new habit, right, we have to stop the old habit and start to work on the new habit. So if you want to have a more organized email and more organized inbox, just put all that stuff away. Put it in a file. You can save the dates, clean slate folder as of today's date, whatever it is that you do this, and then you drag everything in there. Like, you may leave maybe the last week's stuff in your inbox, but the rest is there. It's not going anywhere. If you need it, you can search, you can find what you need. But in the meantime, it's going to be like, oh, okay, now I've got a clean slate. I can start again, right, when it comes to my inbox. And the first thing we're going to do is turn off auto notify. That like ding, ding, ding that comes into your computer. Like, every time that you are sending, that you're sitting and working, and now you're trying to do your focused attention. But while you're focusing your attention, there's an envelope that comes up on your computer and goes, hey, look at me. I'm an email. Look at me. And you can't help yourself because our curiosity cannot be denied. You're human, right?
That's also the big problem with the phones of today, right? So people have their phones on, and all of a sudden Instagram's going off, and Facebook is going off, and LinkedIn is going off.
Exactly that.
And turn
it off. Those notifications as well. Turn off your notifications on all social media. Turn off your notifications on your email, because remember this: when somebody sends you an email or somebody sends you a post comes through on your socials, that is on their agenda, not on yours. It means they're sending something that was on his to-do list, and he sent you the email. Done. I've sent that off to Colin. Now I don't have to.
I can clear my mind. I can move on to the next thing.
I'm done. Right. But this goes back to what I said earlier. But it doesn't mean it's on your agenda. Therefore, you do not have to answer them straight away. And if you take away auto notify, it stops that from happening because you don't keep getting disrupted. And then, of course, we're not saying to never look at your stuff, right? But you allocate a time, schedule time to actually look at your emails. It can be 3 or 4 times a day. I don't mind. Okay, you can do it as many times as you want, but you don't want to be doing it all the time by being disrupted. And this works, by the way, on all of your other platforms: WhatsApp, Zendu, emails, all of the things. If a lot of companies now use these platforms instead of email, right? Slack and all of that. It's the same thing. If your team members are continuously sending you something and you're allowing them to disrupt you, you're not getting on with your job. Because in between checking those emails, what are we doing?
Wasting time.
Yeah,
burning time.
Yes, if we have our emails and we have set a time and we've scheduled time, then in between we get on with what we need to do, right? We can use our focused attention, which is really important. How are we doing for time?
We're going fine. And I just want to say something, right? Because we do a lot of personality profiling, right? So, somebody who is very dominant might just send direct email, capital letters.
Yes, that communication style.
Yeah, that's the communication, where others will give you a thesis.
Yes.
And you think, oh my God, I've got to read this. I don't have time for this. So, I'm very big on, leadership in a company is that open communication that, what I can say to you in 5 minutes could save an hour reading an email,
Exactly,
so I think, again, this is really important about, startup meetings, get everyone together on the same, so we're not going through all this noise throughout the day.
I agree. And, I actually run a session on accountability, responsibility, and ownership for teams. And it's all about communication. Because at the end of the day, people need to take responsibility for what's going on. And if they don't, then what happens is that's when chaos happens. So it's actually a brilliant session on that. And people need to understand responsibility, their own responsibility as a team member, and not, it's not a blame game, right? It's taking responsibility for whatever happens. Really important. Just one
Very
of the last things around your emails. Remember I said before, there's only two types of emails that come in. One is actionable and one is reference, right? So just set up two folders, action, reference, and then keep all the reference in folders, which obviously we all do that, right? We have folders. We always know how to file things. So we have folders for our clients or for certain things. But when it comes to action, we often don't take the action on the emails, because an email that comes in that needs to be actioned is just another task. Okay, it's another thing for your to-do list. So you could have that in your tasks. Another exciting thing, which I think you'll remember, is some people don't know, is that if you can actually drag your emails into your calendar. So an actionable email is your task. You can drag it into your calendar, let go, and allocate a time to deal with that email. So if it's going to take you longer than a minute to answer that email, why don't you allocate a time in your calendar and handle it there? But once you use the system, you'll notice a big difference. Now, some people just use their inbox as the action, and then the reference all goes into other boxes. So anything that's in your inbox, in other words, needs to be dealt with. And the rest of the stuff can be put away. But of course, there's a lot more I can share on this with you. But those are the
You're just scratching the surface.
I am. But those are I would say, the three top things that I want you to do when we talk about email.
I was going to say, I just laugh, right? Because, there are people that, and I'm thinking about my wife right now, has a box for everything, right? And I can never find it, but she's got a box for this and a box for that, to put, this file this way, file that away. So, because she's very process driven.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, that's all part of of why it's so important that you get working with your operating rhythm that works for the business.
Exactly.
I think is important.
And that goes back to the communication style and types
yeah.
of people, right? We've got to understand, we've got to communicate with people in the way they understand. Otherwise, we don't get things done. This is an important part for all leaders, right? Because the most important thing about leadership is influence. If you can't influence people, you're not going to be a great leader.
Very true, very true.
Huh?
Yeah, when we have a meeting on a Monday, just, one of the things we talk about is capacity. Who's got capacity this week? Who hasn't got capacity? And especially for the HR team, because sometimes it's 50 first dates. We never know what's going to happen during the day because the calls come in. But it is good to know who's got capacity and who can help one another out. Hey, I've got this job on the go at the moment, or I need this done, or can someone proofread? So the guys go, I can take that from you, I can take that from you, I can take that from you.
Correct.
So again, that is speeding up the process rather than, could you help me out here? No, I'm too busy. Can you help me out here? I'm too busy.
Yeah,
so I think
wasting time again, right?
Wasting time again. So it is about getting that efficiency going. So I'm always about less paper, right? And better action output is very, very big.
Absolutely agree with you there. That's just an example of how it would look in your email.
That's a goddamn good email inbox, I can tell you that.
So the to read is also important, because one of the things we all want to read stuff, right? Things are coming in all the time. Remember, that's reference, right? So you can have a place where you put it and then make time to read. You can put that into your calendar, and off you can go to a cafe and you can open up and have a look at that for a while and just enjoy catching up on some reading. So I would say those are my main points I wanted to share with everybody today. And so I thought if there's any questions, and also maybe some key takeaways that everyone's got today, like if there's certain things that have stood out for you that you're going to put in right away. Okay, there's a lot of things here that we can implement literally from after this webinar. And so I would love to hear what those are.
I've actually got, I'd like to put something out there for Mandy, because she said a couple of things here, but I think what's important is, one of the things we're very big on is finishing the week off on a high. So that, like that last hour of the week, so we just want tools down if we can get that to happen, and then just chill out with the team and talk about how the week was, the whole lot, and try and clear the brain before the weekend,
nice. Right? Love that.
Yeah, so I think, and there's nothing worse than redlining right up until the time the business is shut, and then 2 hours afterwards. And companies do that, business owners do that, managers do that, but that is not, it's not sustainable. No. It's just not mentally sustainable. And, if you've got a conference coming up, and I just came from a conference, it is about like getting that preparation prior to the conference. What do you need to do, all the above? So again, I know there's people on this webinars, they've got to plan things out and get it going, but it does make it really, really hard if you're redlining. So sometimes you just need, I always talk about how do you smell the roses at the end of the week and reflect back on what you've done, right? So you go into, and we do it with a glass of red with the team. Nice. So again, delegation, we have a dedicated person that buys a bottle of red each week, so we try something different. Nice. And that's what we do. Yeah, so that's just part of the culture and the fun. Yeah. So, for Mandy, who's, just talking about being very, very stressed out and all that, you've got to get it to this point, what does success look like for the business? What does it look like for you, the individual? Yeah. How can we get our operating rhythm going? that's going to make us more efficient.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And that's it. I mean, you want to make sure that the team are also all on board with that, right? I mean,
100%.
one of the things, if anybody knows me well, you'll know that my motto for life is always look for the good, the possible, and the positive, right?
Yep.
And because the thing is, we got to always focus on the wins. Like, it's easy to focus on what's wrong. And like ending a week on a high and saying, what are our wins this week? What did we do well? What we're celebrating.
Yeah.
Changes everybody's mindset.
It does, so I think it is a mindset, and it sets yourself up for the weekend as well. I think is really, really important.
Yeah.
The old, what I say, the water cooler chat and stuff like that. Like, again, I think, speed is a big thing, but, you do need to take a bit of time out and talk to each other. It's easier said than done. We have a new message.
It's
so let me just
important
go back to this. Hang on a tick. So I think it's Jessica or it's, here we go. Reflecting on the wins is so important, and we can learn from these 100%. Edwina, right? And again, and I know you've just done a brilliant job with a couple of conferences we've been recently on, but that debrief and getting the client feedback and all that creates action items to improve the next one, and that's motivating.
That's right.
Very
exactly
much
what we need to do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We want to get everybody on board. Jessica wrote something there as well.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Very hard in the sales when you have people walking in all the time to stick to a set. That is very, very true.
This is so true. This is about distraction, right? And distraction's obviously going to happen in our day. We all know that, like you said, things just start happening. What did you say, 51st day?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Things are going to start happening. And I think when you get some good systems in place, Jessica, then what will happen is that the distractions will be less demanding, because now you're feeling like you're more in control. And I think that's going to be the secret. Distraction is going to happen.
I've actually got a good case study on that, where they've got a salesperson working in a showroom. It's high-end product. And so part of strategic planning, what would it look like if we can get this person to be more active in talking to the clients and bring work in, and then bring somebody in to handle the clients, right? So and I can tell you the client is called Catch Pole and Ride. They're in the UK. I'm going to see my daughter in the UK.
Nice.
And I'm going to do a bit of work with them. But this organisation has leapfrogged in sales, because the person who's got all the relationships, with him ringing up and doing the follow-up and being able to do that, that's generated the targets that they need to do to be more profitable, right? Yeah. So they've just had their best year ever. Wow. So again, that comes back to that efficiency. And I think sometimes when you're stuck in the weeds, you can't see the big picture.
Exactly.
And I'm very big on, well, okay, let's brainstorm this. Let's look at some possibilities. What would happen if you did this? What would happen if you had better CRM system and marketed out to people? And that's all about that efficiencies, right?
Definitely.
I totally endorse what Sue talks about, because companies have systems, and not everyone uses the system the same way.
Exactly.
And that just burns time and effort for everyone. So it's really important to get that going.
And that's the thing, when everybody's on the same page, and they're using like these simple things, right? If everybody knew about Eat the Frog, and this is what we've spoken about before, right? And I go look around here and they've all got their frogs on, right? And a lot of my clients, have this frog, right? And it's a reminder that if you're busy and somebody comes to distract you, then you can just say, hey, eating a frog right now, and people understand that you're busy with something right now. Or I'm on a 10-minute task, and people will leave you and say, okay, get back to me in 10 minutes. Okay? Because again, remember, that's on their agenda, not on yours.
Yep.
That's the thing we need to remember.
We've got frog stickers on our some of our monitors of some of the staff, right? So which is a bit of fun, but that's what it's a reminder.
It's a reminder, actually a good reminder.
Come on, you must have some questions.
So any more questions, anybody?
Reflecting on the wins is so important. We can learn from that. Yep, I've got it. Okay, so let's just go through a couple more slides before we finish off there while they're putting it through. Oh, that's because I've taken control of the mouse. There we go. So Q&As, we've just done that. But what's next? So talk about what's next. Yep.
So what's next? So first of all, you've got some simple tools now that you can put in straight away, right? Use them. You can literally do that, as I said, from leaving here today. But of course, I'm available. I mean, I do one-on-one coaching. I do live coaching. I'm a Tony Robbins coach. And so I really enjoy helping people either be more productive and effective, or even more so around their mindset, and helping them, achieve what they want to achieve and be fulfilled, and do what I do. Look for what's good, possible, and positive, right? And of course, my favorite thing is to share with a group of people and get to share this with you and your teams, because when it comes to time management, setting goals, habits, really even around self-care, like how can we help your team to actually make the most of their day and be efficient and productive? And that's what I'm here for.
I think it's good. And you know what? Things only happen if you plan for it.
Yes.
And a really good example just on mental health. So it's because we've got a bit of time, I thought I'd just talk about it. But it is true that if you book a holiday, you have something to look forward to.
Absolutely.
And that helps with your mental health and your work-life balance, right?
Yes.
Because I know I'm going on this
Harmony.
holiday. It's harmony. And we're about to go and do that. But the secret is making sure that you book the next holiday. That makes sense, right?
Yes.
So again, that's that planning and organise. And when people say, "Oh, how can you do it?" or "How do you make?" You just got to make sure that you put the foundations in place for it to actually happen. So
absolutely. And you know how you do that? What you do is at the beginning of the year, you take a calendar, you go and get one from Officeworks, you put it up, a whole year calendar, and you decide when you're going to be going away that year. Allocate that first. And then you can put everything else in, right? Because then you've already decided and you know that you've got things to look forward to, because that's what life's about, right? We work, and hopefully we're lucky enough like us. I mean, I love what I do, so I'm really lucky.
Very passionate.
Not everybody loves what they do, but we often work for a means to an end, and so that we can have holidays and do all the fun stuff. So get that in your calendar. Get scheduled, it gets done. Remember, if you say I'm going to go on a holiday whenever, you're never going to go on a holiday, right? So we want to make sure that we put it into our calendar.
And it's really interesting, right? Because we're in, what is it, August? We're already planning with Christmas parties and all the team. When are you going on holidays? When's that shutdown period?
Yes.
Because we don't want to do that at the last minute. I think it's just it's a really important thing. And again, holidays is what it's all about. Spending time with your family is what it's all about.
Exactly.
If you're working of a night time till midnight, and my kids tell me I'm a workaholic, right? That's what they tell me. But I love what I do, and I compress it into as much as I possibly can into that week, and that's a good week.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
and I love that you say that, because you're making your working hours, in your working hours, so that you've got the time on the weekends to do the things that you enjoy.
Play a bit of golf,
yes.
Do a bit of gardening, go to a winery, all that sort of stuff. I think is important. So, how do we find you, Sue? This is how people can find you. Is that right? Yep.
Yeah. So obviously you can get me on my website. It's under Sue Glasser. So please go on in there. There's a lot of stuff. There's some podcasts. There's, that I've been on. There's all of the information, lots of blogs. And there's my Instagram at Paperclippo, and of course on LinkedIn. So get in touch with me. I would love to speak to you, whatever you need. I'm available for you or your teams. And I wanted to say thank you so much, Colin, for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure. I always love working with you. And I think, we've got so much in common, and we just literally want to help people.
That's right.
This is why we're here.
And again, it is about that work and that output. So we endorse you, Sue, and I've recommended you to, some people on this webinar to get you to go and speak, because I feel that this is a big issue right now. This time management, getting my time back is a big thing. And 70 registrations is pretty, sort of demonstrates how that is.
Exactly that. We know that this is a big question for most people.
Yep.
And when I talk to my clients, I can tell you something, probably 85–90% of my clients, we need to do work on this.
Time, yep.
Yeah.
Our next webinar is on the 21st of October when I get back, and that's all about driving better culture through leading and managing staff. And I think that going, just from going, this echoes this webinar, because as a leader, if you're not planned and organised, how do you expect your team to be planned and organised? Exactly. So I think that's really, really important. So we've done a few webinars this year where we've collaborated with people like yourself, and it's been very beneficial because we don't know it all. Get the expertise in, and I think that's all about sharing the knowledge. And as you know me, sharing the love. It's all about doing that as well. So if you really liked this webinar, we'd love you to give us some feedback. Give us a Google review, because Google reviews are very important to us, because that's how we, get to that next level. So that pretty much concludes the webinar. What I will finish off and say is, for those who didn't attend, they'll get an email with the link to the webinar to see. And this webinar will be up on our website within 24 hours. So you can look at on our website, webinars on demand, and there's all the other webinars that we've done pretty much over the last 10 years. So
it's so much great information. It's honestly a mine of information. And I'd just like to finish off by saying that it takes time to make time. And well done for everybody who's on this webinar right now, because you've taken time out of your busy day to invest in yourself to find out how you can get more time back. So thank you. I appreciate you.
And everyone will get a copy of the webinar. Thanks so much. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. This will conclude the webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.